Welcome. This is the Sheepdogs Report. I am your host, Minister V. Hill. If you like what you hear, like us, subscribe, so every time we drop one of these on YouTube, you'll get it. Leave a comment so maybe we can figure a way to do this out better. And please share this among Christians and like-minded people. We're going to deal with one good story because there were so many by the end of 2024 and the beginning of January. This one key story, because it was overshadowed by the election and the celebrations and the inauguration and all this good stuff that happened and the fast-paced movement of the Trump administration. But there was one court case that a lot of stuff hinged on. It was United States versus Skrmetti. This happened on December the 4th. And it didn't get a lot of play because there was so much going on with the excitement and everything. This court case was the first transgender case that actually made it. Well, actually, it's the second one, but this was the first major transgender case that made it to the Supreme Court. And this one has it all. You had Matthew Rice for the U.S., and then you had a guy by the name of Chase. Now, I'm going to spell it first. Strango. To me, it looks like Strango, like Doctor Strange, but Strango. What makes him unique is that he used to be a she. So from the rest of this broadcast, we're going to say the attorney formerly known as a woman is arguing for the ACLU in Tennessee. They had passed a law to stop the transitioning of minors in their state. The ACLU wanted to argue that this was discriminating against the minor. Now, if you were just to listen to it, you'd be like, okay, yeah, they haven't made a decision. But there's a lot of moving parts. If you have a biblical worldview, which one thing that we kind of push the sheepdogs and Empty Tomb in our whole ministry, is there was at least 5 or 6 things that's noticeable that most people wouldn't notice. There was a moral argument. There was also a psychological argument. There was a philosophical argument. There was a scientific argument built in. There was a political angle. There was, of course, the legal part. And then, of course, the biblical worldview to get a decisive understanding and so you can discern what's going on. Now, let's first look at the political. The political side was that Biden had just gotten out of office. The Biden administration pushed a lot of transgender and the laws that go with it in their administration. When he was running for president, there was an 8-year little boy who had been transitioned, and he said that we should all celebrate this boy transitioning to a girl. In fact, it was on the campaign trail. So that set the stage for the rest of his administration. Versus, this is still political, we're talking about the political angle, Trump, who said, we're going to get rid of all this transgender nonsense. And as of today, he's been doing that. There's been a little pushback, but not much. So that's the political angle. To add to that, we have in our state, California, Gavin Newsom, who passed in July AP 1955. What 1955 did was enforcing teachers to keep secrets from the parents. Now, getting back to this case, Skrmetti versus the United States, we also had the legal angle. Does Tennessee have the right to adopt their own legislation? That's not federal, that's on the state. Then we had a judge who asked the question, is transgenderism immutable? Now, immutable means non-changing. He asked that to a person who had just changed. The attorney who had changed from a woman to a man. And the attorney said, no. He said, yes, it's immutable. Changing your gender is immutable. Okay, we'll go along with that. We'll see how far it takes you. And then you have to consider that we have the psychological or the social psychological, the mental state of the child, the ideology of the parents. In one sense, they could say we should do what our child, the way we want to raise our child, versus parents who don't want their children transition, but don't have the right to speak up. That's psychological. That's really a mind bend. The state is pushing social transition, like here in California, without the parents' permission. And then we have the philosophical. There's objective truth versus subjective thought. On one end, we as Christians believe truth is something that can be found, especially in God, because Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And there's a whole bunch of other scriptures that has to do with truth. You want to the truth? then Christianity has a true way. The subjective, it says it's just an idea. It's a social construct. So that's how you get to the point where you have a president saying to the federal government, there's only men and women. He's addressing it by sex, not by gender. Gender is subjective. Sex is objective. And then we have the scientific part, where the abuse of psychologically social transitioning that child, and then giving them hormone treatments, and then medical surgery, where they chop off and they add on and this, that, and the other. Now keep in mind that child is going to be doing that the rest of their life. They're going to be seeing the doctor, taking treatments, getting shots, getting stuff refixed for the rest of their life, which they're not told, or they think it's going to be okay. And then there's the worldview. You have the biblical worldview versus the secular worldview. The secular worldview says if it's the law, then it must be right. Versus God's law, which is natural, that everything is there for a reason and intended. He made men and women to complement each other. He made it so that when you raise a family, the children can see the man interacting with the woman and vice versa. That's why families are so important. So you have that all built into this case. In a related story, this happened here in California. Assemblywoman Kate Sanchez introduced that's Assembly Bill 89. It's called the Protect Girls in Sports Act, and it's going against Gavin Newsom's 1955 bill. So we ended up on a good note. Now, if you like what you heard, you can go to emptytombmedia.com and get some great news about stuff you probably never heard of or considered with a biblical worldview, Christian worldview. Or if you're an initiator and you're part of the Sheepdogs Union, which is a network of churches working together, and if you need resources as far as debating, apologetics, or just knowledge, inside scoop, inside baseball stuff, you go there. Now remember to like us, subscribe, comment, and share. See you next time.